Welcome to the Global Flag Football League podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Global Flag Football League podcast. Today, we're honored to be joined by former NFL running back and college football standout Albert Bentley, owner of the South Florida Seahawks and the GFFL. Albert's football journey is one for the books, from his early days at the University of Miami, where he scored the game-winning touchdown in the 1984 Orange Bowl to deliver Hurricanes' first national championship, to his professional career in both the USFL and NFL. Albert has made a lasting impact in every level of the game. We'll talk about his path through college and pro football, what the game has taught him, and why he's now bringing his passion and leadership to the world of flag football. Albert, welcome to the show, and it's great to have you on.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So, Albert, if you could take us back to your early days, what originally drew you to football, and how did your journey lead you to the University of Miami?
Okay, well, actually, it kind of started out in high school. I mean, I was, for Curry County, that's where I, grew up in Florida. Curry County, I was, one of the top running backs coming out of high school that year, but I really wasn't getting that many scholarship offers.
Okay.
There was only a couple of schools that were interested, one in Ohio and one here in Florida. Smaller, I'd say like 2A schools.
Mm.
So I took a marine biology course my senior year in high school, and I kind of fell in love with marine biology.
Wow.
So I decided, I didn't think, being that I was only being recruited by smaller schools, I didn't think that was really going to be a path for me. So I decided to go, to University of Miami for the marine biology program.
Mm.
I was able to get some academic scholarship money to get in there. And really, I actually walked on a dare. A kid that I met as a freshman, both of us, we met at the student union. We're talking, football stories from high school. And he like basically said that, we should walk around. We went to a couple of games, and we really weren't that good my freshman year.
Yeah.
We were getting beat down by a lot of teams. And he was like, we should walk on and help these guys. And I'm like, what do you mean walk on? I didn't really understand the term.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we go to school here. We can just walk on the football team and see if we can make it. And I was like, no, I'm here for marine biology. I'm not going to walk on. And we went to one more game, and then that's when he really, kind of double dog dare me. He was like, because he was like, let's walk on. And I'm like, I already told you I'm not walking on. He's like, oh, I see. You're afraid I'm going to make the team, and you're going to get cut.
Ooh.
That's why you don't want to walk on. I was like, all right, let's walk on.
Yeah.
So he was a big part of me walking on and the rest of my history, because I really wouldn't have walked on if I didn't meet that kid.
Yeah, exactly. What a shift, man. That would have been such a different career path, if he wouldn't have done that. Did he end up making the team?
No, he actually got cut. So I made the
Yeah.
team and he got cut.
Yeah, just completely
Yep.
changed the trajectory of your career and your life. What an amazing story. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that moment, that historic moment in 1984, the Orange Bowl. What was going through your mind when you scored that game-winning touchdown, to secure Miami's first national title?
I mean, it was just the whole game was just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember just, running out the tunnel and feeling like, I weighed like, 5 pounds. I was just so up. We
Yeah.
were all so up. And we just, we had that game, 17 zip in the first quarter.
Right.
And I think, we kind of tried to run out the clock, I think, way too early, and they came back on us. But to get that final touchdown and take the lead, because they had went ahead in the second half for most of the second half. And so for us to take that lead, it was pretty important for our psyche. That team was, they were scoring like, basketball teams against most of the teams they played that year.
Hmm.
So we knew we had to score a lot of points in order to beat them.
Right.
And yeah, it was, it was the pinnacle of my, I can't think of any other emotional moment more emotional than winning that game,
I
for
bet.
my whole career, even in the NFL.
Right.
Nothing that dramatic.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. You see that happen a lot in games where teams get up real early and then they just kind of coast, they take their foot off the gas and then teams end up coming back, and I'm sure you were a part of a lot of those games like that, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know I know the philosophy of it and the odds of it. You're trying to run out the time, run out the clock when you
Hmm.
get a big lead, but you know, famous Jimmy Johnson, the coach after my coach Howard Snellberger was there, and he was like, he got like a bad rap about running up scores, but
Right.
he's like, hey, I got my second, my third team in the game. If they can score against you, I'm gonna let them score.
Yeah.
So he didn't, really change things. We didn't uh, with those teams, and he won. I think one or two national championships when he was there. I think it was like five different coaches
Yeah.
won national championships after that first one, and it was just great players, both college and NFL players, and having that mindset that we're just going to pour it on
Hmm.
whenever we get a lead.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, right? I mean, it's just at that point, you just never know because teams score so fast, especially now, too. It just feels like, with the air attacks, it just points are scored so quickly. And, I feel like you can't coast really anymore. And teams, I mean, just recently, not too recently, but, with the Patriots in Atlanta, in the Super Bowl, I mean, it's just you're up big and you think the game's over and then they come back on you, and so,
Yep,
no,
absolutely. And it's hard to get that momentum back.
right.
That's the other thing that like when you take your foot off the gas, you
Yeah.
you let the momentum swing to the
Oh,
other
man.
side, and getting it back is not a guarantee.
Right, right. I mean, how cool is that though for you to be the, first one for Miami for the, national title for that college is just amazing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's it was so much fun. I
Yeah.
didn't. The only thing I regret is I didn't get to the parade that they had for us in Miami. It was, I got to see video of it, but I got went to the USFL with the Michigan Panthers,
Hmm.
and so I was up there for the uh, combine and stuff like that. So I
Oh
didn't
man.
didn't get to participate, but
Dang it.
it was
Yeah.
good watching my guys.
Right. Yeah. Man, that's awesome though. Speaking of the USFL, you began your professional career there with the Michigan Panthers, like you mentioned. So what was that experience like and how did it prepare you for the NFL?
It was really a good experience for me, going up there and not having the pressure because we just won the national championship and I was starting running back and there
Yeah.
was pressure playing at the pro level and or at the college level even
Right.
at UNS Miami, and then when I went to the Panthers, they already had like some running backs that were there,
Hmm.
so I didn't have to like get in like right away and be the starter or whatever. So I could, kind of sit back a little bit, watch, learn, the next level because pro and college is it's quite a bit different.
Right.
The mindset and how because in college, we have lots of people in positions to kind of help us make the right decision. Whereas in the pros, it's almost everything is on you. So
Hmm.
you got to do it all yourself. So it was fun. It was good for me that I didn't have to be like a starter on day one,
Right.
so I could kind of learn the ropes.
Right, right. Definitely. What would you say the biggest differences you notice between playing in the USFL and playing in the NFL, both on and off the field? Because I mean, we talked a little bit in the green room about how, that all the starters from your team on the Panthers ended up making it to the NFL when that league folded, right? So, what was the biggest difference, now versus then?
Well, I think the USFL today. I would say, and I'm not dealing with exact numbers here, but I would think like back when the USFL first came out, I
Yeah.
mean, they were going after the top athletes,
Hmm.
the Jim Kellys, the top quarterbacks, the top running backs,
Right.
Herschel Walker, those big name players and getting them. Whereas today you see, guys that are maybe good enough to play in the NFL, but they didn't get enough people looking at them,
Mm.
so they kind of got missed in the shuffle. But the USFL will give them opportunity to show that they can play in the NFL and they'll get a shot. So
Right.
that's kind of I think the biggest difference. You have great players in the USFL today, but they may or may not get a chance to show it at the NFL level,
Hmm.
only because where they played in school, maybe what
Got it.
college, so they didn't get a great look. And so the USFL is going to be great for them to help them get a second look, so the NFL can get a second look at them.
Mm. Right, right. Yeah. So it's almost like back then it was like they were competing with the NFL, right? And now it's more like they're just this is the opportunity to try to get back into the NFL.
Correct. Yeah,
Right.
that's how I see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
with the
No.
level of players that they're signing now.
Mm.
It's not like it was big names back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Heck yeah. So you felt like it was pretty similar competition when you were playing for them when you transitioned to the NFL. There probably wasn't much of a drop off then, or I mean, a drop off from going there to the NFL, right?
Yeah, there was none at all. I mean,
Really?
we would have easily. We played in the last. We played in Michigan Panthers played in the first Super Bowl
Mm.
and won it. The second, we 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 didn't make the playoffs the second year, but it was 3 years of that league. Third year we played in, so it was really the Michigan Panthers. We merged with the Oakland Invaders
Okay.
and became one team. But like all the starters from the Michigan Panthers, they all made the team,
Right.
and we were the starters for the Oakland Invaders. So, um, yeah, I mean, we definitely could have beat NFL teams, no
Right.
question. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So, did you lot and any a lot of your play or did you get to play with some of your teammates when you went to the NFL? When you went to the Colts, did you had any players from the USFL from the Panthers end up playing with you on the Colts?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, Don Bailey,
Mm,
which was the center for the University of Miami, and Willie Broughton, who was a defensive lineman for the Miami Hurricanes, that were both. Don had graduated, so he had already went to the pros before we won the championship.
got it.
But Willie Broughton, him and I, we played together there at the Colts, and we were both on the Hurricane national championship team.
Awesome. Well, that's probably always nice to have, f some familiar faces when you get to the team, right? Kind of help
Yeah,
you, yeah, transition a
yeah.
little bit easier.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He was a lineman, Bailey, he was a lineman at the Hurricanes, and see him at the Colts. That was cool.
Yeah, I bet. So, you had a unique experience of splitting time in the backfield, with a Hall of Famer like Eric Dickerson. What was that dynamic like? And what do you learn from playing alongside him?
It was I mean I'll say the biggest skill thing I learned was how to stiff arm people. He
Yeah.
was great at
Yeah.
the stiff arm. And so I watched him and watched his technique and started to put that into my game. And
Yeah.
that was really I kind of like I used to watch like all the great running backs and see what in their game I could put into my game.
Yeah.
It was a great dynamic with Eric and I was the fact that it really wasn't that much of a drop off or if
Hmm.
any drop off when he would go in the game and I would come out
Right.
or vice versa. Um, uh, a lot of the games that we played in, I mean, our average per carry, of course, he was getting more carries than me, but our average per carry was, comparable or
Right. Very
about the
similar.
same.
Yeah.
So having that, having him as a decoy when I would get the ball, because most of the team they're, trying to key on him and make sure he doesn't take off. It made it definitely easier for me to get my yards and
Hmm.
you know, contribute to the game.
Right. Right. No, I mean, it's pretty amazing that you guys had that together, and so what do you see the biggest changes in from the game at running back from back in the day when you guys were playing versus now? Because I mean, it feels like it's you guys actually caught the ball quite often. Looking back at the stats, I mean, you had a lot of receptions, compared to like what it is now with the running backs. It seems like they're in the pass game a lot nowadays versus just ground and pound. And even though that was a lot of the technique back in the game or back in the day, so how do you feel like it's shifted since, at the running back position from when you played versus now?
Yeah, the game is it's actually even the way they're refereeing the games, it's
Yeah,
more of a passing. I think the running back position has kind of been diminished
yeah,
somewhat. It's not nearly as important as it was like back when I played. Um, you know, they'll just roll. If someone gets hurt, they roll someone else right into that
right.
position, and because it's not the major way these teams move forward nowadays is the passing game.
Hmm.
One thing that helped me, when in my career when it was kind of like we were transitioning. We had like what we call the H-back position.
Yep.
A lot of teams were using a tight end for that position. And what we did at the Colts to try to get myself and Eric on the field at the same time was I learned to be a H-back,
Gotcha.
basically. Um, and I was able to, you know, block well enough to be able to play that position, which normally is played by a tight end who's a much bigger person than I was at the time.
Yeah.
I was like my heaviest was like 217, where
Gotcha.
tight ends are 245 or heavier.
Yeah.
So I was able to block, and so I was able to work my way, figure out a position to get to be a starter versus just being a backup for Eric.
Right, right. No, that absolutely. If you don't mind me asking, how was your guys' relationship? Because anytime you have players fighting for that position, you're not just handing off the reins when someone comes in like that. You're fighting for a position no matter what. This is your livelihood. And then you hear some like even quarterback battles when people are, quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre coming and battling Steve Young, Joe Montana. How was your guys' relationship being that you guys got to play together, but how was it, off the field, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, Eric was single. I was married, so at the time, so it really wasn't a lot of off the field stuff. But
Got it.
during the games, I mean, of course, we're on the same team. We're rooting for each other to
Hmm.
do great things, and it was definitely I felt like a little competition rivalry. I remember one game, I think we were playing the Bills or something, and Eric, he was saying he was a little bit gimpy and you know, early in the game, he was kind of, they were keying on him, and like most teams do,
Right.
it's Eric Dickerson, you're going to key on him. So they were trying to, basically force our offense to throw the ball versus give the ball to him.
Hmm.
And so they were keying on him and doing quite well, stopping him. And so he came out of the game, a little bit gimpy. And then I went in the game and I was tearing it up,
Yeah.
running for yards. And so then in the second quarter, he was like, I think I can go after all of you.
Oh yeah.
So it was kind of funny. I'm
Right.
like, all right,
Yeah.
going back in there.
Right. Right. Got that second win because he saw that you were
Right.
tearing
Got
it
that
up.
second
Yeah.
win and he
Right.
saw me like, running off some yards and stuff.
Right.
So it was
That is,
always like a competition to see who's going to have the better yards per carry because, he was going to get the ball more than me for sure.
hmm.
But I was always still trying to compete with him on the
Oh
yards
yeah.
per carry.
Right. Right. And like you said, it was very comparable, when you look at the overall, statistic of it, that's that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So, so transitioning out of the NFL, is a big shift for any athlete. So what was that experience like for you and how did you find your path beyond football?
Well, it was actually, it wasn't, I mean, it was like psychologically, like, okay, football is over now.
Right.
That was, kind of it was strange,
Yeah.
that first season of, because I mean, you start playing football when you're 11 years old and you're playing every year,
Right.
it was like that first season where it was like, whoa, they're playing and I'm not out there,
You're not there. Yes.
it was kind of like a weird feeling. Transition wise, like so far as like, business, whatever, I invested in real estate and apartments and things like that nature when I played. So that part of it, it was pretty simple or pretty easy transition back to normal life.
Hmm.
Um, as a business person or
Gotcha.
whatever. The biggest transition was, yeah, just not no not being out there playing and watching a whole football season where these guys are still tearing it up. Guys that I played with and everything else. So that was the big change.
Right. Is it when that first happens, especially the first season, do you have that mindset where you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna go back. I'm gonna try and play again. Do you have that in your mind, or did you kind of know at that point, like it doesn't matter, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm done.
I was a little bit unique in the sense, I was like the starter because Eric had retired with
Right.
a career-ending injury. So that next season, I started that whole season, ended up being, team MVP.
Hmm.
And then the next season, I blew my knee out in the first or second game of the season. And so when I came back, I actually came back to the Colts after that blew my knee out, and they ended up cutting me. I got picked up by the Steelers, played there for maybe a quarter of a season with the Steelers, and then I was out of the game. And so because of the fact that I knew my knee wasn't, really ready to compete at that level. And then my age, I was 32 years old at the time.
Yeah.
So I was like, pretty comfortable with, yeah, I'm done,
Gotcha.
so far as the career, because I wasn't, able to do the things that I could do before the knee surgery.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it's more probably like you think like I could be out there if this wouldn't have happened. Do you actually, I guess that's another question I wanted to ask is if that knee, do you ever think about if that knee injury didn't happen, if you think it would have extended your career a few more years?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was just coming off of,
The
MVP of the
MVPs. Yeah.
team. And then, second game of the season, went to Miami and, boom. And it was like all blew up. I played like 4 games after that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, for sure. And totally understandable. I mean, it seems like anytime injuries happen like that, I mean, yes, modern medicine might be a little bit different, now, and the surgeries might be a little bit different, and so people can recover a little bit differently and in a better manner. But for the most part, it almost feels like majority of the time athletes are just never the same after a major injury like that, right?
yeah, it actually, the technology for mine actually has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And actually it works quite well now.
Hmm.
Um, Back when I had my surgery, what they would do is they would actually take a piece out of your patella tendon
Hmm.
to make a ligament, whereas now they use a cadaver
Yeah.
um, to get that ligament so they don't do as much damage to your knee with
Hmm.
the surgery because they're not cutting your patella tendon, taking a slice out of it.
Yeah.
So the success rate is like it's night and day now. You
Right.
see a lot of running backs blow their knees out and they don't have any problems.
Mm.
I needed probably, if I was, 5 years younger, I'd have been fine with
Right.
the surgery changed that quickly after my surgery.
Oh man, that's crazy. So is it, I know we're getting really deep into this, but was it more so like the range of motion that changed for you? Is that the big difference?
That was it. Yeah, the
Okay.
range of motion, all that scar tissue from taking a piece out of my patella tendon
Yeah.
really, exasperated the whole situation, and I was not able to get back to where I could had
Mm.
full flexion in my leg. And running back, you got to be fast.
Have to
So
be. Right.
if you don't
Yes.
have that, if you can't bend your leg, you're not going to be able to run fast.
Right.
And that was the case.
Especially with your style of
Short,
running. Yeah.
yeah, a little short burst here and there, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But when you got to go, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards,
Yeah.
no.
You get past that first and second level. It's like you got to take off. And if you don't have
Ex-
that speed anymore, yeah, no, I
exactly.
gotcha for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks for touching on that, Albert. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Global Flag Football League now, and so what inspired you to get involved in, as an owner, and what excites you most about the league's potential?
Well, what really, I mean, I like the concept of it,
Yeah.
spreading football. There's a lot, even me, a lot of people, tackle football is kind of scary,
Hmm.
you know. So even for especially for small kids. So the fact of introducing them to maybe flag football first and letting them get their feet wet a little bit, I think
Yes.
is a great entry level. So I definitely want to promote it. And then finding out that it's going to be in the 2028 Olympics
Hmm.
as a sport for the world. It would that intrigued me that much more
Yeah.
and excited me that much more about getting involved with the league when I was able to get an opportunity to learn more about the league and really how big flag football is in America. I mean, it's there's a lot of teams and a lot of people that are participating in the sport to have both men and women's teams.
Yes.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. I think it's going to be fun.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I love that it gives the athletes, especially NFL players, the opportunity after the NFL to even participate. It still gives them that opportunity to still be involved in sports if that's something they want to do, coming off potentially injuries, and they can't do the physical aspect of the game anymore. So getting to play flag football gives them that alternative, and being a professional league, they can make a living doing it. And so do you see that being a big shift in the football world as well?
Absolutely, and the other way around. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's going to help with kids that are, let's just say, even kids that are, maybe they're not good enough yet to get to the pros or
Yeah.
even in the USFL,
Hmm.
but they may be able to play flag and actually make, a living
Yeah.
playing flag football. That's the aspiration for our league is to have these, our players be able to make enough money where they can actually, play flag football as a professional and do nothing else.
Right, right. Yeah, I think it was Patrick Johnson, the president of the league, who was mentioning that, we're going to see a different type of athlete at times too. People who might not make the NFL or make the USFL, and it's more along the lines of that they're just a really good flag football player, and that it's just going to be that type of athlete. And so I'm excited to see what it's going to, bring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it is, it's a different sport. I mean, every sport has technique involved,
Hmm.
and technique is a big part of it. And you're going to see, like, NFL players wouldn't be able to compete against some of these kids that have played flag all their lives. They know how to
Yeah.
keep you from getting to their flags,
Yes.
different techniques and things like that. So, yeah, it's not gonna be like it's not all about athletic. It's also about skills and deceptiveness and things like that, making
Definitely.
moves.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It is a different game. I mean, it's football, but there's definitely different moves when it comes to that aspect of it. You're right. So you own the South Florida Seahawks in the GFFL. So what's your vision for this team? I mean, are you going to run it similar to teams you had in the when you were playing? What's your vision for it?
Well, I'm learning. I'm actually right now in the process of learning from the people that have been around this game, the
Yeah.
flag game for years, and they know what works. A lot of my part is to put all the pieces together, get a great head coach, get great, individual player coaches, and me more be kind of like manage the team
Mhm.
and make sure that we're able to compete at the highest levels in this league.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be a lot of competition
Yeah.
based on the owners and that are involved here. So yeah, it's going to be really competitive. It's going to be, the Miami Hurricanes, we're kind of known for talking noise.
Yes.
And so the owners here in this league, they're talking noise already.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. With some of the people I've already spoken with, I think the competition, just even from the owners and the GM level, it's going to be great. So I can only imagine as that trickles down to your guys' coaches and the players, it's going to be fun to watch, man. I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Albert, this has been great, man. Thank you for joining today. I really appreciate it. So, how can listeners and fans connect with you and learn more about the South Florida Seahawks?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is going to our, I guess, to our website.
Yep.
The website is up. We're hoping to get, this league, our whole concept is to be, owned by the fans.
Yeah.
So far as they're, investing into the league and being able to, be benefit financially from being a part of the league. So we definitely want to encourage people to look to us for to invest in the program that because we believe we're going to have with the TV coverage and things like that we're going to have a very profitable league and those fans can participate in those profits.
Yes. Nope, you're absolutely right. Well, I'm excited to see it get going. I'm excited for your team and see what it's going to develop into. I know it's going to be successful, but again, thank you for joining today, Albert. It's been amazing, and I really appreciate it and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Sounds good. Good meeting you and good speaking with you.